In the 21st century, is the physical neighbourhood dead? Has it been slayed by the online world? And is this a tragedy for us? Do you increasingly spend more and more of your time checking social media rather than chatting to friends and neighbours? Do the young people in your life walk down the street oblivious to all, except for their headphones and their Twitter feed? And it increasingly worries me that we don't look out for each other. But I also believe that the physical neighbourhood and the online world are interdependent. They rely on each other. And the online world could be a key tool to help us reverse the decline of our communities. On a cold morning at the end of last year, I thought about this as I sat on a bench in a village called Annesley, a former mining community in North Nottinghamshire, where generations of my family had lived and where I grew up. Annesley was founded on farming, but transformed by coal mining. A dark, dangerous, dirty job, but an honest, honourable profession where the bond between individuals lasted a lifetime. And that bond was felt in the village. It was nurtured through the physical contact, often in shops, but also in the Miners' Institute, or the Miners' Welfare, as it was known locally. And the Miners' Welfare was a witness to the flow of village life, from Cub Scout fairs, to crown green bowling, to flower and vegetable competitions. Miners were avid gardeners. Wouldn't you want to spend as much time as possible outdoors if you spent 8 hours a day, every day, underground? And my dad was one of those people. He grew enough produce to feed our family many times over, often leaving excess tomatoes or vegetables at the front of the house for people to take. Perhaps a more kinder and natural way than the modern food bank. And the community in Annesley was strong. Everyone knew everyone else, and everybody helped everybody else. And that sense of belonging, the need to belong, is something that's in all of us. It's something that's existed in humans since the start of time. The need to establish long-term relationships with each other. Belonging matters. Annesley today is transformed beyond recognition. The Miners' Welfare has shut its doors and lies derelict. There is no butcher, there is no baker, and the greengrocer closed its doors at the end of last year. In our neighbourhoods, that sense of belonging is eroding. Our neighbourhoods are under threat from a changing world, under threat from the online world. Today, you can buy your meat or your loaf of bread, along with all your other shopping, online, and have it delivered to your door, soon by drone. Here in Cambridge, we are at the forefront of the technology that drives that online world, those virtual communities. We created the first webcam. Academics in the university pointed a camera to a coffee pot to save them the effort to go and get a coffee if the pot was empty. But that simple act removed those important social, physical connections between individuals. The chat that you have around the coffee pot as the coffee is brewing. Today, the world is connected like never before. Estimates say that 1 in 3 of the world's population, that's 2.4 billion individuals, are connected via virtual communities. And that trend is gathering pace. Facebook has doubled the number of its active users since 2012 to some 2.2 billion. Who in this room checks their Facebook, Twitter feed, WhatsApp, and Instagram numerous times a day? I know I do. Yes, we all do. We all do. And as we move rapidly to that virtual world, we leave behind those important physical, social connections with each other. And that threatens our lives. And it threatens the life of the communities where we live. And we can demonstrate that. We can demonstrate the impact on our social and mental well-being. And it's not just the old and the offline that are impacted. It's actually the young as well. Because although they're connected to the world like never before, they feel more lonely and more isolated than ever. A survey by the Mental Health Foundation in 2015 highlighted that in the UK, 1 in 10 of us feel increasingly isolated and lonely. And 48% of us, that's almost half of us, believe that we're getting lonelier in general. And that brings me to Bubble the cat. A cat from Cambridge who was lost but is now found. And I know you're saying, why is he talking about a lost cat? Well, I know about Bubble, not because its owner posted a poster on a lamppost, but because they posted a message on an online app next door, a virtual community that links you with your neighbours. Now, Bubble was found some 13 miles away from Cambridge. That would be an awful lot of posters on an awful lot of lampposts if they were using the traditional method. But the story of Bubble is an illustration that convinces me that the virtual world, the online world, is a critical tool in reversing the decline of our communities. And in its simplest form, virtual communities can be WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups that I'm sure all of you have. And if you're a parent today, you're more likely to be kept up to date with school news and gossip via a Facebook group, even though you may have slightly less time to chat at the school gate than historically. And those groups link us as neighbours, both near and far. And the interesting thing about the virtual community is the impact it can have on major events. Most recently, we saw that with the tragic fire at Grenfell Tower in London last year. Through social media, people both near and far answered the call for aid. And that response was transformed into a huge amount of physical help, an overwhelming emotional connection, not just between Londoners, but from people beyond. And I believe that the virtual community, if used correctly, can not only ensure that our existing neighbourhoods survive and prosper, but it acts as cohesion and spirit in new communities. The transformation of the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park to part of a long-standing East London community is an illustration of how the online world can bring people together. Developers and community groups used a range of online apps and tools to encourage both new residents and existing residents to embrace the park as part of their community. But nothing is guaranteed. To use the online world as an enabler, it needs that vital ingredient, you, people in the community, a reason to follow, a purpose, be it a lost cat or saving your local pub from closing. So my challenge to you is to shout out loud online about your great community groups, be it a yoga class or a gardening club. My challenge to you is to shout out loud online about those great community services, such as the service you get from your local butchers or your local shop, or the great lunch you had at your local pub. But most importantly, my challenge to you is to be that catalyst, to be that vital ingredient, to use your online world as a tool through which you will preserve your physical community so it survives and prospers. Be it a neighbourhood in which you live today, or potentially a new neighbourhood where you live tomorrow. Like Bubble the cat, the physical neighbourhood may be lost, but you can help to find it with the online world. Thank you.